All right, so as was just mentioned, I'm from Hackster.io. My name's Alex Clo, and I'm basically the dancing monkey at the front of the company. So what is Hackster? We are a community of hardware developers. It's basically the largest online community for hardware developers, producing open source projects and sharing them with each other. So it's great for people who are looking to learn technology and who are looking to share their own tools and projects. Actually, since that description was written, we've gotten up to almost 800,000 members, so still growing at a really exciting rate. And things are basically awesome. So, talking about projects, that's basically when you go onto Hackster, these are the first things that you see. Each project has code, schematics, bills of materials, any CAD files that you would have, for example, like 3D printing, laser cutting, PCB design files, and things like that. All of that is basically laid out really easily for you so that as an author or a reader, you're really guided through the process and you can easily find what you need to recreate the project. Once a project enters the ecosystem, basically we can feature it at the top here, but we can also, it gets dynamically sorted via tags into topics, for example, home automation, robotics, wearable technology, super popular topics for everyone, smart cars, and some more that I'll actually cover at the end of the talk. In addition, every time that a project is published, the bill of materials is basically smart linked to all of the platforms that it uses. So if you use an Arduino and or a Raspberry Pi, or the Things network, or Pi supply devices, or things like that, then you'll end up with your project being shared across all of those networks. So by topics, by platforms, and by a number of other ways, we sort of, once the project is published, it gets disseminated in all these different ways so that it's very easy for people to find. And in that way, also, the platforms can show off the things that people are building with them. So one of the big problems with producing a hardware platform is that people will ask you, what do I actually do with it? Like, what are the use cases? What are the applications? And what are some tested designs that I can actually use to build stuff with this and see what it's for? There's a general mistake for people to say, you can do anything with it. And this really helps bring that down into a concrete, visible, browsable format. If you're a company, we also have options, for example, running contests. So this is a really exciting one we've been doing with really artful PCB design. So PCB badges have become very popular for conferences, and you see a lot of engagement from the community and getting excited around designing these really aesthetically pleasing PCBs. And it's motivated a lot of people to learn PCB design in order to participate in that. Additionally, we have things like webinars and stuff, so we just ran this whole big dev day, all-day, multiple session webinar with ARM, and I know Alessandro and some other ARM people are here, Neil Tan. Shout out to you if you're in the crowd. So those are options that we have for companies. And these last two slides kind of answer the question that I get a lot, which is, how do you guys actually make money? How are you a company? Because everything is open source, and the site is free. We have never run ads yet, and we're just about to start running really minimally invasive, really relevant ads. So it's really an organic feeling, non-corporate, very hacker-friendly community. And then finally, we also have a huge media presence. For example, our blog is super popular. We have a number of really cool bloggers who are experts in their fields. Adam Taylor talking about FPGAs, which is a big thing that's coming up in the community right now, as well as Lora and other platforms. So that's my little spiel. Hackster is open source projects, contests and communities, our video and social media, which is a big part of what I do. So we have about 500,000 subscribers to our blog. We have hundreds of thousands more people who are on our social networks, including Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, etc., live events, and webinars. So who am I? I'm basically, as I said, the sort of robot dancing monkey at the front of the show. I run our video channels. I started out as our community manager about 4 years ago when we were just starting out as a community. And what I do from day to day is build projects. For example, here is Archimedes, who is my AI-powered robot owl friend. I also do unboxings, live unboxings and introductions to new technology, as well as attending events and interviewing cool people. So if you have a cool project, or if you have a company that you want to share with the open source hardware community, I really encourage you to get in touch either with me, my contact info is at the end of the presentation, or just check out the community for yourself and see what you can do, even just organically. So I basically have my finger on the pulse, or I try to, of what's going on in the broader community at large, as well as what's happening on Hackster itself. And I've been really enjoying watching Lora and LoRaWAN become adopted by our community in a very, I was going to say organic again, but like a very real and sort of friendly way. I think people are really excited about it. So you'll see projects with all kinds of platforms that people are using. I think that companies have done a great job of disseminating beginning tutorials for how people can get started with LoRaWAN. And if you're here for the workshops, you might be excited about this as well. I'm also looking forward to taking some of those. But you can use it on, for example, people share projects for Raspberry Pi, for Arduino, for the ESP32 and ESP8266. Well, maybe Lora with the ESP8266 like together systems. So there's lots of projects about how to mash things together. Like for example, I want to use Node-RED because I'm really familiar with like JavaScript and Node.js, or even just like beginning programming with like a little visual programmer. And the ST-Nucleo, or this other thing, or the device hive system. And I think this one, or the next one, one of these guys also uses the Windows 10 IoT core. You've got people blending LoRaWAN with cellular modems. You've got people using it with solar panels, which is not like another platform in itself, but people are blending it with their own goals and aims, which are, for example, sustainability, smart cities, things like that. So those projects that I've all just shown you are all very sort of nuts and bolts, like how do I take this thing and screw it onto that other thing? But of course, we also have a bunch of people using it for creative end user ends. So, and things that I think are enabling that are, for example, PiSupply just recently ran a crowdfunding campaign around their IoT LoRa boards. And this includes things like a Raspberry Pi platform, a microbit platform, and an Arduino platform. In case you're not familiar with those three, they're basically three of the most popular platforms for people who are getting started in electronics. So Arduino is a sort of microcontroller that might take a little while to get into if you've never done software or hardware before. Microbit is actually something produced in collaboration with the BBC and a bunch of tech companies coming together to build a platform that's really friendly for kids. And they actually gave it out to an entire grade level in the UK. So it has like a little 5x5 LED grid. You can program it with block programming and things like that. So bringing Lora really to the children and the people who are going to be tomorrow's engineers, and that's really exciting. So they made this one platform compatible with microbit, Arduino, which is sort of like an in-between platform. You can kind of do one or two things at a time with an Arduino. Very sort of take this input, do something to it, produce this output, sensor to actuator kind of workflow. I guess for you it's sensor to actuator if you're going this way. But then the Raspberry Pi, of course, is a single board computer which you can program. It runs Linux, you can program with Python, JavaScript, etc. And so they're capturing the sort of three main entry points for people, from children to beginning hobbyists in electronics to people who are really comfortable with software and want to start get started doing hardware. So I think that's really exciting, and they're doing something really solid there. Plus, well, okay, one final note on this. Anything that gets published that uses Lora with the Raspberry Pi gets shared to the Raspberry Pi page as well. Anything that's published with Lora and Arduino gets shared to the Arduino page, which they actually embed as their own project hub in their site. So that gets a lot of really exciting exposure, whether you're a creator or someone who is creating a platform. Another thing I'm really excited about, when I was looking through the Things Network site and getting set up with a couple of things, I noticed this, which is security. Everyone's talking about security, and rightly so. We've been screaming our heads off about it for a few years. Since smart cards began being a thing and a few companies had to issue really painful either updates over software by shipping people a million USB sticks or things like that. Security has to start becoming more of something that's embedded at the very start and not an afterthought, and people are really catching up to that kind of idea. So this is another best practice that I'm really excited to be adopted by the Things Network. They're really clear about being welcoming to people finding bugs and vulnerabilities and how to report that and embracing that information, as you should. Like, don't be afraid of it, it's your friend. And you really don't want the alternative. So those, basically accessibility and cross-compatibility and security, I think, are the two main things that you can do if you're trying to reach the developer community right now. For the near future, I think we're going to be seeing lots of things around smart cities, especially having just been to CES and seen what people are focusing on. Smart cities in particular focusing on things like, we've seen projects that are doing anti-theft smart bike systems, people doing pollution and air quality detection systems that have multiple nodes running around a city, even attached to bikes sometimes, or cars, or taxis. We see people doing lots of last mile delivery, especially I live in the Bay Area. You can't really go a week without seeing, well, there's tons of smart cars for one thing, and people trying to do self-driving stuff, which could benefit, but also lots of autonomous robots that are meant for last mile delivery. You know, the last, sort of a lockbox on wheels. You know, you get the picture. Then AI and machine learning, which has a lot of hype right now, but also has a lot of promise, as long as you obviously realize that these, like, all artificial intelligence is designed by humans, algorithms are not neutral, and whatever you put into it, garbage in, garbage out, you have to cleanse and de-bias your data before you put it in, and then you'll be able to really do some really cool stuff with AI and machine learning. Space tech, super exciting. There's a couple of companies here who are going to be presenting that I totally want to check out, because I think this is one of the coolest places where Lora and LoRaWAN can have a really big impact. UAVs are kind of getting, I think people are kind of getting tired of them. Like, the hype is boiling over, but they still have a lot of promise and ways to use them that are not military. Augmented reality is a big one, and so these last two are not so related to Lora or LoRaWAN type technologies, so they might not be as interesting to this crowd, but they are things that are going to be really interesting in the next few years, so you should be looking at if you want to branch out into other areas. So our entire ecosystem is made of people across the spectrum, everyone from grade school students to people who are already software engineers but want to get their hands dirty with hardware, to people who have built their own tools and now want to start crowdfunding their own tools to make their things easier for their peers who are creating IoT projects. We have people who are at huge corporations who are trying to design the tools to make things easier for people 5 or 10 years down the line. So from very young people with stars in their eyes to people who are looking forward literally to the stars. Super exciting. So that's me. If you want to hear more about this, which Alessandro from ARM is always telling me that I need to actually publish as a blog post, I'm going to do this. This is basically a view into the whole spectrum of people in the open source hardware community right now. Then you should follow our blog, because it's going to be there. And you can also follow me and Hackster on all of these platforms. We are Hackster.io. Hackster.io is the website, obviously. And then on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, etc., Hackster.io. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, Alex Glow. You said here you do a lot of interviews on the spot. You'll be doing interviews here too for Hackster.io?
Yeah, I have my microphone with me, so I can like capture people in the wild and like get them on my camera.
Cool. Any questions for Alex? Well, I have one. As you know, the Things Network has a community too. We're very proud. We have 60,000 members. You have 500,000 members.
Yeah, but the Things Network is also on Hackster, so we get to like work together.
Oh,
awesome.
okay. But what is your advice to us to grow? And if we do, where do we need to take care of? I mean, the most obvious advice is to get a good dancing monkey in front instead of an old fart like me. But what advice would you have for us to let the community grow?
Well, being Authentic and being in person with people very much. Because if they always see you as this kind of distant face that's pushing stuff out but not really listening, people aren't going to be as excited to share with you. They're not going to feel like they have a place to contribute. And people want to contribute. They want to share things. They want to have their tools publicized. So the more that you can sort of celebrate people who are already using the technology and are doing really cool stuff with it, and you can also choose what you want to emphasize, you know, whatever your goal is to have people make, whatever use cases you're trying to promote. The more you can find those people and celebrate them and talk to them, the better you're going to do.
Okay, well, that's actually what we do here at the Things Conference.
Yeah.
So we're doing good? Well, we're still young.
I think so, yeah. I'm really excited to be here.
Last chance for a question or remark to Alex. No, thank you very much. Alex Gloom.
Thank you.